Ladies and gentlemen, we are coming at you live from episode 36 of Life on the Rocks with your host, Connor Rocques. Today's featured guest in the hot seat who has a very difficult last name to spell. We got Teresa. How do you pronounce your last name?
Niabese.
Okay, there we go. Teresa Niabese. Sorry about that. So for anyone who doesn't know Teresa currently, she's actually a mining engineer in the local city of Sudbury, as well as an author. So we're going to unpack that today. How are you today?
I'm doing fine. Thank you very much.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show here today. I want to ask you right off the bat, what got you started as an engineer?
You know what? It was basically a bunch of coincidences. What had happened is I enjoyed math and sciences in high school, went to university thinking that the medical industry was the most likely and natural choice for myself. But once I got to university, took biology and realized that I wanted nothing to do with the human body. I was very fortunate to be in this amazing mining town, Sudbury, and at Laurentian University, they were offering engineering, and the faculty seemed like a lot of fun. The students seemed amazing, and I just wanted to join, be part of something big, and have nothing to do with biology.
Wow. Okay, honestly, I can contest that. I couldn't do the biology skit. I took some evolutionary psychology. It was definitely not down my alley. So how long have you been an engineer now?
Well, I've been in the industry for 15 years.
Okay, so you've been in for 15 years, and have you been in Sudbury the whole time, but you were saying, or you moved around a little bit?
Well, I was really fortunate. I got a chance to work up in Thompson, Manitoba.
Okay.
And lived up there for 5 years. Really enjoyed my time up there as well.
Do you work with the whole team, or is it just you specifically? Like, how does this operate? Just curious.
So currently, I'm a frontline supervisor, so I do get to work with the team. Yeah.
That's great. How do you find dealing with some of these different individuals? Obviously, you got different personalities. Do you use the same technique for everybody, like as a leader, or you kind of got to deal with people differently? How do you find you work with people?
I find that I'm very fortunate that I love volunteering in the community, so I get to work with all types of teams, and it's always different because of the different backgrounds of people.
Something I was really interested in, I want to talk to you about, I was talking to you before about the legal mind. I come from a legal background, but I want you to talk to me about the engineering style mindset. It's kind of based, it's like a very logical mindset. I always made the joke that some of the girls I used to go on dates with that were engineers, none of my jokes stood by them, it just didn't work. Like, talk to me about the engineering mindset, if you can.
Well, it's funny. I saw somebody and I'm not funny, but there was a funny little caption on LinkedIn, and one of my friends had put it up, and it was something like that alluded to the fact that a lot of engineers like a good argument. So, I mean, I just find this, I find anyway, among some of my engineering buddies, not to put us all in a stereotype, is it's kind of interesting to be part of a dialogue and to kind of bounce back ideas until we get to the best one.
Definitely.
So I find, I'm going to stereotype us and say, I think we like a good argument, some of us anyhow.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that's what I just wondered when I'm talking to different engineers, you just know they come in from a different lens, a different perspective. I want to ask you though, so obviously being that we're in a mining town, why did you go into mining engineering? Was you didn't want to maybe go into environmental or chemical? You were more interested in the mining sector?
I think very organically, which is why I'm very much involved in mentorship and wanting to put opportunities before youth, is that for myself, it really was not an in-depth, well-researched career choice, but and that's why I'm passionate about making sure that we're putting careers in front of youth. Definitely. Where they can see that, there's chemical engineering, there's environmental, or maybe I can be a physician, maybe you can be a biologist or a welder. So I personally was at Laurentian University going into sciences. Definitely. An opportunity came up to switch into an engineering discipline with no biology, and there I was in mining engineering. However, once I settled into the course, I did find that our industry has a big impact in the world, and it's been very exciting to settle into that industry and to interact with other STEM disciplines.
Definitely, and so that's actually what I wanted to ask you about. So we're talking about STEM, so it's science, technology,
engineering and mathematics.
And so that's an organization that you work hand in hand with, correct? So
STEM is basically an acronym that's used to blanket those kind of careers, or that kind of the sciences, technology, engineering, mathematics. It's a generic blanket acronym. Definitely. But this is something that is exciting. It's everywhere, right? Every occupation really interacts with STEM to some degree.
Definitely.
Mining is no different. I mean, like you said, I might be a mining engineer, but again, we rely on environmentalists, we rely on biologists to make it all come together.
Absolutely. You got to kind of converse with different fields and everything else.
Absolutely.
All the fields I'm not good with, the sciences, the maths. I don't tell anybody that, though. That's the good thing.
Well, but business is obviously a key cornerstone of everything that we do in society. So yes, the business side you have to interact with as well.
Well, that's it. You got to be able to pull everyone together in a team and kind of think, okay, you got to deal with this type of personality, this type of mindset. It kind of all converses. I want to ask you. So you were talking a lot about careers, right? So you say that we have these mentorship programs. You're running an event, is it, or not you specifically, but the engineers are running an event tomorrow. Is that at Laurentian called, what's it called?
So we're very fortunate to be able to host yet again a career cafe, we're calling it.
Okay,
and
career cafe.
Yeah, so this is the Professional Engineers of Ontario along with Women in Science and Engineering. We're having an event for boys and girls, basically anyone really, high school students, elementary students, people who are interested in just exploring more. It's going to be hosted at Science North in the Valley Cavern from 6 to 8 p.m. Public is most definitely welcome. We've put up posters everywhere. A lot of schools have been amazing at distributing it to their students. Mm-hmm. And basically what we're going to have is 3 amazing guest speakers. They're going to be talking about their career paths. We're going to have a geologist from Bort Longair. We're going to have Patty and Colin Pegues talking about their mining careers.
Wow.
And also we're going to have Erica from Snow Lab talking about amazing work that they're doing at Snow Lab and how they interact with different STEM disciplines.
That's awesome. I think actually that's going to be some good insight too if students, show up and kind of go into that environment. Something I want to ask you then, if we're going to talk about students just for a second, what do you find is one of the biggest obstacles facing millennials right now? That you see a lot of them, they're going to school, get their education, and they come out into a job field, they can't find jobs, they're not passionate. What do you find as an engineer, especially being diverse in the field, being one of the biggest obstacles we're facing as millennials?
I just think in life, though, and I can't really speak obviously to a whole demographic, but mm-hmm. I would say for myself, what I found is it's so important to, and it sounds very cliche, but you really need to understand what you're passionate about and understand that, I believe that there's a space and an area for everyone to contribute to in our society. It's funny, we're talking about that today with a couple of colleagues about how, some people have a researcher mindset. They excel at being in a research environment. Some people are more introverted and would, they don't necessarily want to deal with people all the time, but they want to be in an environment where they can come up with amazing, innovative ideas Absolutely. That can make our society great. So I would say that it's really important to understand that there's a lot of options for everyone.
Absolutely.
And search for your passion and look for opportunities where you can contribute your best excellence.
Because I kind of find your path, and that's what I'm starting to see with a lot of students, that they're going into places that they don't want to be, there's no energy, and then they're getting told, oh, you have ADHD. It's just like, well, no, you're not focused on what you want, right? Like I used to sit in the classroom, and I'd be sitting there, and I'd be and the sciences for me wasn't the best. Okay. Biology again, like I was in a biology class, and I'm sitting there, and I'm drooling in my desk, and and he's like, what's wrong? I'm like, I just don't have any desire in that subject, right? And I'm all about going full-fledged into what you really like. So let's cross this over. So what made you become an author? For anyone who doesn't know, so we got your book right here. What actually made you go ahead and write this book and then publish it?
Well, you know what? At the end of the day, what I'm feeling when it comes to this book and when I look at the outcome of it is it's just really important to show different faces doing different things in society. Definitely. So when you showcase a mom and bringing her child underground, it sends a message. It's a big message, right? If you look at stereotypical, mom and child stereotypes, mom's not going to bring a child into an environment that they don't find very safe and welcoming. So that's not what I feel about mining. I feel that mining is a core business that can be extremely rewarding, and so for a mom with pride to show her child her workplace for the day is very powerful. And I'm finding I'm having very engaging conversations with youth as well as other adults about the industry that we work in, and Definitely. They're seeing the beauty through this character's eyes. Absolutely.
So this is basically about a mother taking her child down into the underground, getting involved in the environment? Exactly.
So basically what happens is that Maya, I don't want to give away the whole book.
Okay, we'll not give that.
However, we will say that Maya does have a big birthday surprise, and she does get to go underground with the mom for the day.
Wow. And how long has this been published for?
I would say March off. I want to say last year. I'm so bad. My daughter says 2015. But yes.
All right. Okay, we'll go with that. That's perfect. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
How difficult did you find it writing a book?
I did not find it difficult at all. We actually have a funny story behind the book writing. Myself and a bunch of children who are coincidentally in the room, which you guys can
they can't see it,
but they are here in this room. My children and I, as along with a niece and nephew, were traveling to Ottawa.
Okay.
And at some point, they got tired of technology, and so, like any good adult, I said, well, guess what? We're going to dictate a story. And there we were. I was speaking, and they were dictating. And what I found very fascinating was the engagement. So, we talked about, you're going underground. What does it feel like? What do your ears feel like as you're descending? And really, from that moment, I felt that, wow, there's an interesting story here. Because I started to hear some stereotypes. And it was, so that's basically kind of how the story came to be.
No, I was wondering just to see exactly the backstory of it. I have to ask you though. So right off of that, it burst a thought into my mind.
Yeah.
Do you get anxiety when going underground? Like I always find, I've never been underground. It always seems like I'd get some type of an anxiety when you're going right under. Like, did you get that at first?
No, it might sound like a bizarre comment, and maybe pilots would understand what I mean, because I certainly assume when pilots are ascending in the sky, they feel like they're home, like that's where they're supposed to be. When I go underground, I feel completely at home. I feel safe. I feel I don't know. It's really, such a comfortable feeling for me.
Is it like is it hotter down there than it is on the temperature, like when you're in your suit and everything like that?
Yeah, it does get warmer as you go underground, and depending on the weather outside, it does change. I mean, summers can be warmer. But it's just any environment. I mean, when I go to schools and I'm talking about picture underground. So I say to people, picture an apartment building, but underground, right? So you got the elevator, you go down, then you have all the different levels, like an apartment building, right?
Yeah.
So it's a work environment like every other.
Definitely.
Think of an apartment building and then put it under the ground.
I got to go down. At some point, you'll have to take me down. I want to ask you, do you think you're going to be publishing any other books like in the future?
I think so. It's kind of fun to communicate with the general public. Like, I just think that I'm obviously an extrovert people person. I've always been a lover of people. So I find that this is the book route has been so fun for communicating with diverse groups of people. And it's such a wonderful portal for somebody like me who loves to engage with other people. Yeah,
exactly. It's one of those things where, let's say, as a speaker, you go out there and then you have something, and at the end of it, they're like, I want some more content, and then bang, you got your book right there.
Absolutely.
So obviously, did you go down the self-publishing route?
I did. Actually, there's a company behind the book, which is Diversity STEM.
Oh, nice.
Which is a company that I created. And with that portal, with that avenue, I'm basically mixing things that are very intrinsic to myself. So being an immigrant who came to Canada, it made me aware of diversity more. And maybe if I was in Zimbabwe, in a homogeneous place with people that looked exactly like me all the time, this might never have been born, right? But being in Canada, being in the industry that I've chosen and the field that I'm in, diversity is always front and center. Like when I'm in a room, it's a natural thing for me to understand that I might be different, and it's always interesting for me to find out how we can make things more diverse and more inclusive to different people.
What were some of the obstacles you had to face coming into Canada as an immigrant?
Well, I think sometimes when you're experiencing the obstacles, you don't know you're in an obstacle until maybe when you're older and you can kind of self-reflect. So I came to Canada at 12 years old, and I truly believe now in hindsight that I probably took about 7 years to kind of find myself again. So I was always a very talkative child, but I found when I came to Canada, maybe from grade 8 to high school, if I look at what I was involved in, the me who I know I am to be wasn't really coming out in high school. I look back now and I always try to tell my children, I love student government. The idea of student government is something that I love, and it fascinates me, and I always think, I wish I'd had the courage, and I wish I'd had the mentorship, or had been more settled into Canada enough to know that these were amazing opportunities that would have gone very well with my personality. But again, those were some of my challenges, is not having a mentor at a very young age. As soon as in hindsight, I would say what I would always promote is when immigrants come into Canada, it's so important for them to get mentored and to have mentorship or to seek mentorship, right? Because there's so much. Even right here living in Sudbury, I mean, I actually discovered Manitoulin Island recently. And part of that is just when you're an immigrant, there's just certain things that you don't participate in or know about, or that are just not part of your circle of influence. And so I think that's what drives me, which is why the Diversity STEM company, the mentorship, it all stems from my own personal experiences and wanting to make it easier for others that come after me.
Absolutely, kind of give them the guidance so that they're not just walking into something where they don't really know what's going on. So would you consider yourself an entrepreneur then, obviously? As an author, you have your company known as STEM as well, and then you're an engineer. Do you consider yourself an entrepreneur?
I think the entrepreneurship mindset is probably something that was fostered as even a student taking engineering.
Absolutely.
I mean, one thing about mining is that it is obviously, being part of the mining industry, it's a business, right? And I think that's probably groomed me into having an entrepreneurship mindset.
Yeah.
Just because that the business I'm in is a business of turning over, of creating a product at a profit, marketing it safely, and same thing with my venture with the books. Yeah, I would say I would consider myself to have an entrepreneurship mindset. I love being around business people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was going to say, even when you talk, when I've been talking with you several times, you've been out for lunch, you can tell you have the complete business mindset. You understand it's not just one lens. I'm just an engineer. You're coming in from the leadership side. You're like, okay, this is how you're going to move the team. This is the business side of it. So you're very versatile in that. So the most important question I got to ask you then, so obviously you see a lot of this in everyday culture, that you get these authors, you have people that are entrepreneurs. The speaking skit, are you trying to get involved to become more of a public speaker? You want to get out there and promote your message more to the youth, to other people, to explain, diversity, everything? Do you see yourself being more of a public speaker?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I say that because when I go into schools and I'm talking to little kids, sometimes sometimes they might focus on my braids for a minute there, and I love being a different face that is showcasing something that's so common, but in a different lens. I love when people see themselves becoming something else from seeing role modeling. I love role modeling. I'm a big believer in that, in role modeling values, and just showing others that maybe they can see themselves through you, or they can look at you and say, well, I could do that, or I could even do something even extra. So I do love public speaking because it puts you in an arena where you're reaching different people, and you can do your little bit in community. And ultimately, it's about community engagement and finding ways of being a contributor in the community you live in.
That was actually going to be the last question I want to ask you. How do you feel about giving back? I think it's one of the most important things that, we live somewhat in a narcissistic society. Everybody's out for themselves, but the true fulfillment in life comes from when you help somebody that's fallen or something, just giving back. That's when you feel a true purpose, right? How important is that to you?
Absolutely, one of the key cornerstones. So I'm an opera fan. I like, when I say Oprah, the talk show host.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Super Soul Sunday, all that. The reason why as I get older, I'm understanding a lot of what Oprah would tell us over the years, and she always used to say, you get more from giving back, and I never really understood it until I started, looking up to people like Michelle Obama, who talk about reaching back, and there's such a joy in. I believe no matter what age you are, whatever walk of life you are, be it working at Tim Hortons, be it a janitor, be it an engineer, a miner, a welder, I believe that at some point you're constantly amassing some form of knowledge that you have the ability to pass on to somebody in society to make a difference for us collectively. So giving back can be monetary, yes. I mean, especially now with Operation Christmas Child coming up. There's going to be the telethon on TV. There's so many avenues of giving it back. Very cheap way of giving back, I think, which is within all of our capabilities, is taking the knowledge that you've amassed so far and finding a way to reach youth or others or peers and sharing it. And it's an amazing way of giving back that we can all do no matter what walk of life or where we are in our lives.
I think that's huge, honestly. I think that's one of the biggest points anybody can take. And it's funny that you mentioned that. I always realized for a long time, something that kind of got me excited was realizing that you can impact somebody. You can drop something that all of a sudden, 25 years later, you have a teacher you remember that had such an impact on your life, right? And that's the thing that people don't sometimes realize, that influence is powerful.
Absolutely. I mean, I was telling somebody that one of my biggest influencers was one of my grandmothers in Zimbabwe growing up. And I used to go to her house for summers, and she was my grandmother's sister. But one day she just looked at me and she goes, Teresa, I want you to be a judge or a journalist. And just that simple statement, honestly, made me feel like I could be anything. Yeah. Because she just basically picked these careers that I saw very powerful people in. And so I think your words matter, and how you speak to people, and what sometimes, and that's why I love the mentors that I do have out there, and the sponsors and people who encourage me, is sometimes they'll say something that makes you believe more in what you're capable. Like they make you see your capabilities even further than what you could have even envisioned for yourself.
Exactly, and that's where I kind of don't believe in a sense that there is such thing as self-made, because you have a whole bunch of people that are kind of bringing up. It's not like I'm just sitting in a box and I bring myself up, right? And I learned that from one of the martial artists, Conor McGregor actually says that. When you think about it, like you are the people you're surrounded with, right? It's the most important question that I have to ask you. What can we expect next from you? So with your company STEM here, is there anything that you guys are planning, obviously with Christmas, is there anything coming up? What can we expect next from you? I mean, you're now a mining engineer, author, you're going to be a speaker, you'll probably write another book. Like, what can we tell out to the audience here?
You know, right now, actually, what I'm really focused on right now is I have a thirst of knowledge. And right now I'm in the kind of, I would say, a learning phase. I've been reading a little bit more lately. I think life is about seasons, right? So sometimes sometimes I'm in a technical season now. I want to amass more technical knowledge, and I'm actually in a bit of a technical phase right now. I'm looking around at what I've been reading lately, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, this is, I'm just that kind of person. Sometimes I'm really, I'm always balancing self-development books. That's
definitely,
just me. Yeah. I get to drive around a lot having kids. I'm always driving from point A to point B. I love listening to books. But also right now I'm in a bit of a technical phase and I'm reading lots of technical books. But as far as, as my outreach, the big event tomorrow, the Career Cafe, I would love to see a lot of our general public there. Please come out. Everyone is welcome. Also, we have, with Women in Science and Engineering, we're going to be having a Soup Sisters event, College Boreal. So what it is, I don't know if you heard of that. Have you heard about it?
I've heard from Liz Spooner, the Soup Sisters. I see it on Facebook.
Yes.
That's about it, yeah.
Amazing. So, of course, open to men and women. And what we're going to be doing is, on November 26th, still tickets available, making soup for, I believe it's Geneva House. I might get that wrong. But basically making soup for families, right? And so it's $55. So you cook the soup. And then you basically make enough food to last X amount of time for one of the shelters here. So that's coming up. And then in January, we're going to actually be having our AGM for Women in Science and Engineering.
Oh, nice.
Again, inviting anyone who's looking for mentorship or networking in that sector to come out. That'll be fun.
Oh,
and so then our cycle starts off. But as far as the business, yes, probably more books.
I got to ask.
Maybe.
I always had to ask.
Is it possibly another book coming? But we have to wait and see.
We got to see what happens with it. And by the way, I totally forgot. You're a 40 under 40. So talk to me about that really quick. So you ended up, so that was at the Caruso Club last week, right? And how did that go about that you became 40 under 40? We obviously can see how, but talk to me about that for 1 second.
Well, I was saying to someone that I must say that it was probably one of the most touching moments I've had in a long time in my life. And the reason for that was seeing the event through the lens of my parents. So my parents are immigrants, I'm an immigrant. And to see the community that you immigrated to embrace you was about one of the most special and moving moments that I've had in a long time. Not only that, it was also seeing how Siberians are amazing, because they would read the profiles of the top 40 under 40s that were giving these awards, and I just thought, wow, we live in an amazing city.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of talent here and a lot going on, and it's an encouragement for anyone to get more involved. Yeah, it was absolutely special. Very, very special.
I want to ask you about that. I must say, though, it's honestly been a pleasure to have you on the show.
Yeah.
For anyone that's looking for mentorship, seriously, this is the person right here. It's been a pleasure to have you. Seriously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Keep up the great work, and I'll be waiting for the second book.
Absolutely.
There we go.